Parque Warner Madrid is described on the park's official website as one of the most complete and advanced theme parks in Europe, a statement which may have rang true when the park opened in 2002, but is probably way off the mark these days. In this video, I'll be giving my in-depth review of Parque Warner, a bit of background about the park's history, and my tips for getting there from the UK. The land on which Parque Warner Madrid stands today was bought up in the 1990s by the city of Madrid, with the intention of a theme park being built. Several theme park chains, including Universal, were contacted about the possibility of operating the park. However, the project was awarded to Time Warner, a group which Six Flags was part of at the time. There was a few complications leading up to the project beginning to take shape, but ultimately it was Time Warner and Six Flags who would take the project forward. Parque Warner was originally known as Warner Bros. Movie World Madrid and opened in spring 2002. It was initially operated by Six Flags, however the agreement came to an end in 2004. It may be 16 years since Six Flags were operating the park, but there's absolutely no doubt in the impact on the park's infrastructure that Six Flags had and still has today. Whenever I visit this park, I'm always reflecting on how different things could be if Six Flags had been able to operate the park over a longer period of time. Six Flags do get a lot of negative feedback, but my only experience of one of their currently operated theme parks, Six Flags Great Adventure in New Jersey, was a really good experience. Since 2007, Parque Warner Madrid has been operated and owned by Parque Warner, who own and operate more than 60 parks in the world. I think that Time Warner are still a small shareholder of Parque Warner, but I'm not entirely sure about this, and I do apologise for the terrible pronunciation of the current park owners. Parque Warner is split into 5 large themed areas. There's the Hollywood Boulevard, Warner Bros. Studios, the DC Superheroes area, the Old West Territory, and the Cartoon Network Village, also known as the Cartoon Village. Personally speaking, the DC Comics area is my favourite area of the park and was a large driving force behind wanting to make my first visit to the park. This, along with the trip reports on Coaster Force and Theme Park Reviews forums, which always used to state how quiet the park was and how the ride operators would happily allow re-rides on the coasters if there was nobody waiting to board the train as you returned to the station. Those trip reports and seeing the DC Comics area of the park was a massive influence in visiting the park, and to this day I'm still glad that I read those trip reports and decided to visit for the first ever time in 2012. Parque Warner's attractions lineup is impressive, however there's been a severe lack of investment into the thrill seeker offering since the park actually opened. What they do have though is impressive and worth making a visit for. You can certainly see the Six Flags influence on the coaster lineup with the B&M Invert Batman clone, a coaster you can find in most Six Flags parks. There's the B&M sit-down looping roller coaster, Superman, also a type of coaster that you quite often see in Six Flags parks, a large wooden roller coaster, Coaster Express, which has an intimidating presence about it, and then there's a Vekoma giant inverted boomerang, Stuntfall. I fully expected Stuntfall to be absolutely brutal with it being an old school Vekoma coaster. Let's be honest, it isn't smooth, absolutely not. However, it isn't uncomfortably rough like some of the old SLCs out there. Stuntfall is very, very intense and will leave you wanting more after you've been on it. The Batman clone is an excellent roller coaster, but very, very intense. It has impressive theming in the queue line as it's themed to Arkham Asylum, plus the surrounding area is really impressive too. Superman's queue line theming is really good and really bad in places. You enter the Daily Planet building, which is exceptionally themed. However, it all goes downhill from there once you leave the office section because it becomes very basic. Superman has an excellent first drop, 7 inversions, and a couple of surprise airtime hills too, which all make for a great layout. The whole superhero area is done fantastically well. The transition between Gotham City and Metropolis is transitioned so well, and both cities are executed beautifully. They wouldn't look out of place on a movie set. In fact, the whole park is themed beautifully, with each area transitioning into the other perfectly well. There's one last major roller coaster we need to talk about though, and that is Coaster Express. The less said, the better, so let's just keep this short and sweet. RMC conversion please, as soon as possible. Parque Warner also has 2 family-friendly roller coasters in their family sections of the park. I don't have footage of either roller coaster, but what I will do is leave a link in the description of the video to RCDB where you'll be able to find a couple of pictures of both coasters. Parque Warner has a solid selection of attractions away from the roller coasters too, especially their water ride offerings with a fantastic Rio Bravo water chute ride, a lengthy and soaking rapids ride, another water chute attraction, and a splash battle. If you want to get soaked in this park, there's plenty of opportunities to do so. There's also a solid selection of thrill rides and dark rides too, all of which add up to a very good offering whether you want coasters, water rides, thrill rides or dark rides. There's a lot to do for families with younger children too, especially in the Cartoon Village. Sadly, it's not all good at Parque Warner Madrid, and these next two things are something that really let the park down. Park operations are absolutely abysmal at the best of times. If the roller coasters were operated to their full potential, or at least somewhere close to it, it would be bearable to queue for the rides. However, that's sadly never the case. One train operations are really not unusual here, but even when they're on two trains, it feels like they're on one still. I'm excluding Stuntfall in this because one train is the absolute maximum it can have, but the B&M coasters and Coaster Express are so frustrating to queue for. Sometimes it's really not unusual to see dispatch times taking anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes. The operations are frustrating, but an even bigger frustration is the poor queue line management. Queue jumping is considered to be normal and not frowned upon by the people in the queue with you or the staff working on the ride you're waiting to get onto. Parque Warner is well worth visiting, but please save yourself the frustration of the poor operations and queue jumping and just buy yourself Fast Pass as soon as you get there. Parque Warner has a really decent show offering, starting with the characters from the shows roaming around their themed areas. For example, you'll regularly see the likes of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman and other characters meeting and greeting fans throughout the different themed areas. There's a large show offering too, with the Batman show taking place every few hours in Gotham City. Something to be wary of here: queue jumping. You may find that you'll have a great spot to watch the show, but all of a sudden 20 people will appear out of nowhere and suddenly decide that they're going to march their way to the front just so that they can have the front row seats for the show. Sadly, I'm really not exaggerating, and this happens a lot. The other headline show is the Police Academy, which takes place in the Warner Brothers studio area. This one is easier to pick a spot and not lose it because it's got arena seating which is really well managed. There's also more stage shows in and outside. There's parades, a big water show at the end of the day, and so much more if you really like your theme park shows. Before I talk about my tips for getting to Parque Warner, I will give a summarised overview of how best to approach the park in my opinion. If you are visiting for the full theme park experience and not just the coaster creds, I would recommend giving yourself 2 days to see and do everything. For the coaster creds and the other attractions, save yourself the frustration of the poor ops and please buy Fast Pass. You won't regret it. It will buy you time to see and do everything in the park. If it says on the website that the park's opening at 11 AM, it usually means that the gates will open bang on 11:05 AM and then guests will slowly be filtered into the park. The rides are usually opened on staggered opening from 11:30 onwards, or at least that's how it used to be. I usually start by going to Coaster Express first, get the worst coaster out of the way and then work your way through the rest of the park from there. With or without Fast Pass, Coaster Express is painful to wait for, but not as painful as riding it. Beyond doing Coaster Express first, there's no particular order I follow at this park, but I always keep an eye on the show times on the park map, just so I can watch those, and always check what time the catering establishments open and close, because a lot of them aren't open all day. Something else to consider, there's a severe lack of shade at Parque Warner, so please remember to take sun cream. The sun can be very intense here. Getting to Parque Warner is fairly easy and usually pretty cheap, but please check their opening times and dates before visiting the park because their operating schedule is sometimes hard to follow. It is well worth noting that they do have a Halloween and Christmas offering as well as their summer offering. So, how to get to Parque Warner? Book your flights to Madrid and then look for accommodation in an area called Pinto. I will link the hotel I fully recommend in the description below. Pinto is easily reached from Madrid Airport. You can do it by train, but I would recommend taking a pre-booked taxi. We usually use a company called Sun Transfers who have always been really reliable. Staying in Pinto will give you accommodation close to the park and it'll give you options. You can take a local shuttle bus to Parque Warner from Pinto's train station. The full details are on the park's website, which is also linked in the description below, or you can get a taxi from your hotel, which is usually quicker and far more comfortable. In my opinion, Parque Warner would benefit if it became a holiday destination with accommodation on site and regular transport between Madrid's airport and their resort. It still shocks me that they haven't done this, as I'm fairly certain they get a lot more overseas custom, boosting the park's income and gate figures. They have a quality theme park, a decent water park, and usually have good weather, All they're lacking, as far as being a destination resort, is a hotel to accommodate guests who would probably be encouraged to visit for a few days. I wasn't expecting this review to be quite so long, but I hope it has been interesting and informative. To summarise, I fully recommend a 2-day visit to Parque Warner. In the summer, it needs to be 2 days, and likewise for Halloween. I'm not too sure what it's like leading up to and just after Christmas though. I would really like to see the park improve on what they have. They have an excellent infrastructure, but they just seem to lack direction. Whilst it may have its faults, which I feel quite strongly about, I really like this park and will without doubt return in the future. Maybe next year, maybe the year after. I don't really know. I never really make firm plans to visit, and then all of a sudden I find cheap flights to Madrid, and then I'm going. That is all from me today. If you have any questions about Parque Warner, please let me know in the comments section below, and I'd also like to see your reviews from the park if you've previously visited. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next Pleasure Beach Experience video.